All right, it's time to talk Ole Miss. And the Rebels got their first SEC win of the season last week when they beat Kentucky.
Redemption.
A little revenge game there. Kentucky got them the year before, but now you don't get to rest because now things get even tougher, or they stay tough. You're talking about taking on a very tough Arkansas Razorback team who is coming in undefeated as well and ready to get a win.
And you can't talk Ole Miss without this man in the conversation. He is the host of the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, which you can catch right here on the 24 Plus app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. Mr. Stephen Willis, always give it up for a clap.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Actually, it's going to be a big, fun weekend, right?
Yeah, Stephen, I am boycotting claps. I will only do golf claps or celebrity waves at this point. So I think it's a new thing I'm going to start.
So actually, it's really not for you, because a fun fact about Ruben, when he first started working here, his first introduction was the little celebrity wave.
Yeah, something like that. But nobody wants to know how I wave. They want to know how you think Ole Miss looked last weekend, and then we'll start talking about this coming game, which is going to be a fun weekend. But give us your take. After the game was over, you sat down and said what? They looked, boom, good, bad, what?
They looked good and bad. The first quarter, the first quarter was rough. It really was. The turnovers to start the game, the same as the Georgia State game, that needs to stop. Mm-hmm. Because when you look at the numbers, Ole Miss this season in the first quarter, it's a 7-7 scoreline over in the aggregates. But they've dominated the second, third, and fourth quarters. And against Kentucky, that was no different. They kind of went on a 30-10 run to close out that game, and they kind of dominated the end portion of that game. And that was fantastic. They ran for 220 yards against the defense that the year before they only got 50 yards, not counting quarterback runs. So there's a lot to be encouraged by in the Kentucky game, but they still did not play well for four quarters. When this team plays well for four quarters, I think it's going to look a little bit different. And maybe Saturday night's where it begins.
Well, Stephen, I don't know if you're much of a betting guy like myself, but my takeaway from that game was I was upset about the line because on this program, again, I was wrong about an Ole Miss spread. I listened to you. I took the 9.5 spread, and at the end of the game, Lane Kiffin calls a timeout, and I'm like, what are you doing? And then Kentucky kicks the field goal, and I'm glad Lane Kiffin apologized because he made me be wrong, Stephen, and I was mad. What is his problem?
Yeah, seriously, that was absolutely weird because Ole Miss was going to cover. We were all going to get the feeling of being right, basically, of what's going on. It's like we called this game. We nailed it. It started out poorly, but at the end of the day, we got where we needed to go, and then that happened at the very end. It didn't affect the outcome of the game or what is being said about the game, but it affected everybody that had a wager on the game. Because if I'm not mistaken, that kick also put the game over.
Yeah.
So, not only did it miss the spread, you got an over instead of an under off of one timeout to end the game.
Let's talk about this coming weekend. Arkansas is ranked in the top 10 in scoring offense, I believe, right now nationally. They're putting up numbers. And again, they played Arkansas State, Alabama A&M, so it's not like they're playing top-tier teams right now, but they're at least being effective with what they're doing. How does Ole Miss get ready for that? Because Arkansas has got to have something in mind after the whooping they took last year.
Yeah, they're going to be fired up about this game. They're definitely coming to Vaught-Hemingway Stadium for blood, essentially. You could hear it from Sam Pittman's voice. He's not somebody that does the motivational stuff. He kind of wants this. When you factor in the transfers that went from Arkansas to Ole Miss, plus what happened in Fayetteville a year ago, he really wants it. Now, this is a second year with Taylor Green under Bobby Petrino. And Bobby Petrino in a year two, it's going to be a little bit more complex. He's going to have more trust in his quarterback. And what you see is Taylor Green with 10 touchdowns, even though it's against Alabama A&M, who made Peyton Thorne look like a Unitas candidate, by the way. And Arkansas State, he threw 2 picks in that game, but he is a little bit more comfortable in the system because it's a year 2 Bobby Petrino system. The player that I think you need to watch in this game, and nobody's talking about him outside of the hardcores, is Mike Washington, the running back for Arkansas. Bobby Petrino relies on play-action pass. He is as dominant of a play-action pass coach of any coach that has existed in the last 2 decades. If you want to stop Arkansas, if you want to get off on a good foot, you stop the running back run. You stop Mike Washington and force this to be a one-dimensional game with Taylor Green responsible for everything. If that happens, you're going to win the game going away. If Ole Miss, who has given up explosive runs against Georgia State and Kentucky, continues to do that against Arkansas, and Bobby Petrino gets to get in his bag a little bit, it could be problems. Last year, he scored 31 points on that Ole Miss defense that led the SEC in scoring defense. The year before, when he was the offensive coordinator at Texas A&M, the second half of the game, he was able to get in his bag, and he turned Max Johnson into the left-handed version of Tom Brady, at least for a half. And all of a sudden, Texas A&M was a blocked field goal away from beating an 11-win Ole Miss team that year. So you have to be careful with Bobby Petrino, but the way you stop it is through stopping the run game. If you can stop the running back run, I think it's going to be pretty good.
So, with that being said, what do you think about Austin Simmons going into this game? Because through 2 weeks, it's been kind of hot and cold. I mean, we can look at him from the eye test and be like, okay, he seems okay, but stats-wise, he's already thrown 4 interceptions.
Yep.
And now he has an even tougher test against a better defense than Georgia State or Kentucky. Well, Kentucky and Arkansas defense probably hand in hand, but still, what do you feel about Austin Simmons going into this game?
I think he's just a young quarterback. If you look at what Austin Simmons, he struggled in his first spring game whenever he was unveiled to everybody a couple years ago, almost did the flag football thing. He actually struggled throwing the ball in that. He struggled in the first scrimmage where he was the starter. He struggled in his first home start. He struggled in his first road start. The thing about those scrimmages, the second and third scrimmages, he played pretty well. So we'll see in this Arkansas, now that the new factor is over, you're not going on the road for the first time as the starter. You're not playing a game at home as a starter. Is he relaxed? And also, he was injured a little bit at the end of that Kentucky game. Does that change the way that Lane Kiffin attacks Arkansas? Does it look a little bit different? Are they relying on Kejuan Lacey a little bit more? Because, I mean, he looks good. He looks legit. He's leading the SEC in rushing right now. If that happens with the weak point of the Arkansas defense being the defensive line, this has a chance to be a get-right game of sorts for Austin Simmons. Now, it could also go unbelievably wrong. We've all seen that. But the elements are there for him to have an efficient game manager game to where he goes through and puts a 0 in the interception column and kind of straightens everything out.
Yeah, coaches always say, you only get so many my bads, right? We've talked about this in the past. I would say, to your point, Stephen, that the first half mistakes, he's kind of out of my bads. Now it's time to prove you can start and finish the game, because against elite competition, those mistakes really do bite you in the butt.
Yeah, if the Kentucky game happens against Arkansas, it's not going to be 10-0. Yeah. It's going to be 14-0 with all of the pressure on your offense, so you don't go 3 and out and punt, because it might be 21-0 and the game's over. Mm-hmm. So Austin really needs to take care of the ball and stop that, whatever's causing these slow starts to happen, because later in the game, after the first quarter, his rebounds have been fantastic. His 4th and 1 that he completed against Kentucky was an unbelievable throw. But the first quarter, for whatever reason, whenever the defensive script is out there, he is struggling right now. And Ole Miss needs to figure out a way to get Austin Simmons past that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, real quick, either of you guys ever watched Any Given Sunday with Davey Fox? He's Willie Beeman. I
haven't watched that movie in a while, but I remember
throwing up in the first half and then killing it after that. Yeah. Rich, go ahead.
Yeah, football's about the inches. Football's about the inches.
So we stand on the offensive side. You brought up Kejuan Lacey, who, I don't know, Stephen, maybe it's us being biased, but I think he might be not only the best running back in the SEC, he might be probably one of the best running backs in college football. I just love to watch that guy. What do you think?
He has an elite contact balance. Like, if everybody remembers Cam Scatterbo from Arizona State last year, Yeah,
Yep.
it's kind of the same thing where you think you have him, but no, you don't have him. And that is really cool. When you put in the track speed and the vision that he has, man, it's an elite combination. And Ole Miss hasn't even really used him in the pass game yet. Once he is allowed to get out in space to where he's going up against cornerbacks and safeties instead of the inside run game, I think this offense is going to open up quite a bit more. We saw in the Kentucky game, when they started shifting from running inside zone plays and power plays on the inside to running off tackle and running outside, there's a little explosiveness in his game, and that is going to force defenses to scheme for that, which is going to open up other stuff. Kejuan Lacey is going to make Austin Simmons' job easier. And it just needs to happen. As everybody adjusts to what's going on right now, everybody's adjusting to the best offensive player that Ole Miss has being Kejuan Lacey.
To that point, though, you got to give some love to the big fellas up front because none of those holes open up. And that's interesting because I know Ole Miss was struggling with some early injuries in the preseason on that line, having to move some guys around. So talk about how impressive that offensive line has been at this point then.
Yeah, I think it was the SEC network that said there was 158 yards before contact against Kentucky. And if you have 158 yards before contact, at least in the rushing game, they did their job. And once the quick game got mixed with it, it was pretty fantastic. Now, there's a little bit of a shaky moment from time to time in the pass game. They haven't gotten that completely ironed out, but this week it looks like another piece might be returning in Terez Davis from the University of Maryland. He's not listed on the injury report on Wednesday night. Luke Haas is not listed on the injury report for Wednesday night either. So Ole Miss is about as healthy as they've been since the beginning of camp, save the Austin Simmons ankle thing.
So we got to get you out of here, Stephen, before we run out of time. Quick prediction again. Let's try this again. What is your prediction for this week against Arkansas?
Listen, this game is the drunk uncle of SEC football games. It's never what you expect. Everybody's expecting a high-scoring game. I'm thinking it's going to look a little bit more like the 2023 game, and I don't know if Ole Miss is going to cover. I'm not exactly sure where the line is, but I think the final score is going to be about Ole Miss 28, Arkansas 21.
Last time I checked, the line was at 7.5. We'll talk about it in 901 bets, but I believe it's 7.5.
Yeah, I think over the last 10 years or so, this game is decided by 10 points or fewer or 2 touchdowns or fewer. So to your point, it's not going to be the barn burner that some people are thinking it's going to be.
I'm not going to give my take until we get to Bluff City lines, but we just wanted to hear it from the man himself, Stephen. We always appreciate your time.
Have a great rest of your day, Stephen. We appreciate you, brother.
Appreciate it, guys.